Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are listening to the Podium Podcast from in the world. Welcome back to another video where today it is, of course, the 2025 Dutch Grand Prix race review in what was probably one of the best races I've seen for a while. Why? Because so much happened. It's great that we had a banger of a race straight after the summer break. So we are straight into it with what was a very interesting Dutch Grand Prix, full of highs, lows, emotions, on-track action, off-track action, everything that was, everything that makes a great race. And not just for, this race, but this race will definitely be a talking point in years to come of where this championship swings, because as we all know, and we might as well get into the first talking point of the video, it is of course Lando Norris DNFing out of the Dutch Grand Prix from a guaranteed second. He was catching his teammate by a considerable amount, but to his despair, his engine went pop with only a handful of laps to go, which really does put a pin in his championship hunt against his teammate. From what was a guaranteed second place, would have put him 16 points behind his teammate. He is now 34 points behind the Australian. Well, I mean, the main question people are asking about this is, of course, does this mean that his championship hopes are over? Completely not. There is not one reason why he still cannot win the World Championship. Yes, he has had some bad luck over this year, this being one of them. You've also got something like, I don't know, I really don't know, in terms of bad luck. This is his first, actually I'd say, his first part of misfortune. I would say all the others leading up to this, in terms of misfortune, has been his own doing. In terms of mistake, you look at Canada as a great example, where it was his fault for going into the back of Piastri. You look at Saudi Arabia qualifying, where it was his fault. You look at countless times in qualifying. You've even got Bahrain, where he messed up. You even got, China sprint quali, where he messed up. All these little errors do, kind of fall into a big grey area. But this is, I would say, one of the first times where he's not been at fault and he's been, punished for it. Yes, this is, misfortune, but it is part of racing. This is what they sign up to do. The only problem is now, which Jacques Villeneuve said in, I think, for Sky, is that give it 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been a big problem because reliability was not a big factor then, and in all honesty, you were expected to have at least one or two races where you DNF because of an engine failure with hydraulic problem, oil leak problem, power unit problem, steering problem. All these reliabilities will add up to some sort of DNF once or twice maybe a season. But the problem is now is that with reliability becoming a lot stronger in these modern day Formula 1 cars, the chance of retirement is minimal from just reliability, which means that it kind of puts him at unfair advantage compared to his teammate, who, even though he has the same car, the reliability will be looked over both cars, not just Lando's car, and there is still a low risk that Piastri will have the same misfortune. It does throw the spanner into the works of his championship hunt, of course, but that is just racing. But if you look at the bigger picture, we are heading to Monza this weekend. There is another chance for Lando to redeem himself, and it doesn't have to be a reliability problem. It could be just an error from Piastri, which means that he DNFs, he retires, he's out of qualifying, which, of course, drivers make mistakes all the time. However, champions rarely make mistakes. You look at the greats, you look at Max, even in his championship winning years, he rarely put a foot wrong. He was the one that, come week in, week out, was getting the maximum out of the car and was performing and delivering. The people that were trying to, take that championship from him were the ones making mistakes. If you make the least mistakes, you've got a better chance of winning the championship. It's not necessarily about being the quickest, it's also about being the most, I suppose, carefree, I suppose, the less, the most careful. It's not always the most careful driver, but it's the driver that can be reliable in themselves. But regardless, it was going to be a great fight. I mean, it planned out to be a great fight at the end because there was a safety car because of Kimi Antonelli and Leclerc crashing, which we'll get onto later. But yeah, it was a decent-ish start from Lando, all just to be blocked by his own teammate, which meant Max on the softs could get a better, I suppose, swing into turn one. He tried around the outside, Lando blocked it off, but then going into turn 2 and then turn 3, Max somehow still managed to put a foot in and take second place from Lando, which was Lando's fault. Lando should have done more. This has happened countless times now. I can't even remember how many times this happened now. Too many. It even happened this time last year at the Dutch Grand Prix, where Max just got him at the start, and for the first 10 laps, he's put on a disadvantage because of his own fault. If Lando managed to, I suppose, hold off Max at the start, the race would have planned out more to his hands. He had the pace to catch Piastri. He had the pace to go and take the lead. Yes, overtaking was difficult, but if you're close enough to Piastri out in front, you can force an error. You can force him to, I don't know, make an error, pile on the pressure, do something at least. But as you're behind Max in the first 5, I mean, I think it took him maybe 7 laps to get past, 9 laps to get past, which is around, I know, maybe 15% of the race. But with that 15% of the race, your tyres are getting cooked, whilst your teammate out in front is building a 4 to 5 second buffer, which means that you're doing even more work. And I know Lando's been saying in the media he has to get on top of his starts, but it's been a year now where the starts, not just here, you look at other races, even somewhere like Spain, I think it was, or you look at a race like Hungary, even last time out, he got a poor start, so he couldn't go and fight at the front. He had to try and do something different. He never has the upper hand. Even if he starts on pole, there's always something that goes wrong. So getting on top of that was the issue, but with the safety car, of course, it neutralized the race, which means that Lando was right at the gearbox of his teammate. And it was going to plan out to be a good battle, I suppose, with the last 20 laps or something, because he was getting into DRS, and, there was 12 laps left. He had a lot of tyres left in him. It was going to be a good battle to the finish, a hard-fought battle on track. But to his despise, he had an engine problem. I think it was a supposed oil leak. He was complaining about smoke in the cockpit and that something doesn't smell right, and it puts him 34 points behind his teammate. But there's 9 races to go, so anything can happen. It also kind of gives, I suppose, a mental, relief to the situation. If you look at a driver, if you're constantly within 10 to 15 points of the championship lead, you always put a pressure on yourself to try and, just beat my teammate. I need to beat my teammate. I need to win. But with Lando now, all he has to do is just do the best that he can. He doesn't have to think about Piastri that much because there's a 34-point gap, but just think about himself, think about his own driving, which could see maybe better performances, better improvements in his racing, because we know that he may not be the best under pressure. We've seen this even in 2019, 2020, 21, 22. Lando was definitely an emerging talent with less, I suppose, spotlight on him. He managed to, I suppose, just drive well. But as soon as he's been, I suppose, labelled with this championship material, you're in a championship fight, we've seen a lot more errors from him, which kind of, I suppose, hides his actual ability and puts more of a, I suppose, a tag of him being a bottler, a person that cracks under pressure. But we will see. Of course, with Lando's misfortune, there also came people that fortuned off it, that actually, I suppose, benefited from his DNF. Swings roundabout, say, because Isaac Hadjar, take a bow, his first podium in Formula 1, the youngest ever French sitter on the podium. At just 21 years old, I believe, He is on the podium in just 14 races or so, which compared to his start in Australia where he binned it on the formation lap has shown how much he's actually, I suppose, improved. And it was great to see. It wasn't just a freak race where he wasn't even in the, I don't know, running for a podium and then bam, just like that, he got a podium. No, he qualified P4. He controlled the start. He kept Charles behind. He kept George behind for the whole race. After every single safety car restart, he kept his ground. And then, with you being, I suppose, so high up, and also keeping pace with Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, he managed to earn himself a podium and a fantastic drive. I've given him a 10 out of 10 in my ratings for yesterday's drive. It also shows, I suppose, compared to his other counterpart in terms of rookies, Kimi Antonelli, that maybe Kimi Antonelli is not the hype, but maybe Kimi needed more time, getting into Formula 1 and getting well settled into Formula 1. Jumping from F2 to F1 is so, I suppose, difficult, and it's taken Isaac, Oliver Behrman, Bortoleto, Lawson, Colapinto a good couple of years in F2 before they're confident enough in themselves to jump to F1. And even today, we saw that Antonelli was not the best rookie out there. He was probably the worst rookie. He finished P16 because he got 15 seconds worth of penalties, 10 seconds for crashing into Leclerc, which was completely his fault, and the 5 seconds more for a really reckless mistake, but which was speeding in the pit lane, which was stupid. It was a stupid move from him, probably full of anger and emotions going into the pits to serve his 10-second penalty. But regardless, you had Lawson, maybe who didn't get the tangle with Sainz, could have done well. You had Bortoleto in the points, you had Behrman in P6, his highest ever finish. He had, I suppose, Colapinto, only one place off the points and beating his teammate. So, I know this is definitely maybe a one-off, but Hajar's been there or thereabouts for most of the season. Yes, he's had a poor start, but he's gradually built upon, and I would say himself and Bortoleto are definitely in the running for best rookies of the year. It's going to be a tight one at the end for the prize giving ceremony, whoever got the best rookie, because all 6 of them have been doing fantastically well. They've been having their highs and their lows, which is part of a rookie season. But I think the best rookie would be the rookie that is the most consistent and the most, I suppose, error-free in their approach to racing, which Kimi has definitely not been. You look at the last, I suppose, couple of performances. Dutch Grand Prix, no points. Hungarian Grand Prix, no points. British Grand Prix, crashed out. Austrian Grand Prix, crashed out. Canadian Grand Prix, he got a podium. If you didn't get a podium in Canada, then if you're looking back to Spanish Grand Prix, crashed out. And in Monaco, he didn't score points. So his podium has been his only source of points in the last 6 or 7 races. So it's been a difficult patch for him compared to where he started in Australia with a P4, which we all thought, oh my god, this is the real deal. But as F1, as any other team goes, you win some, you lose some. But when you're compared to those who are the best of the best, it does take a mental toll, a mental effect. And for a 19-year-old, a kid that's just turned 19, it is a lot for him to handle. But that all being said, you need to realize that this is a year that he is supposed to make mistakes, he's supposed to make errors. But if you compare that to those who are the likes of Hajar, Behrman, Bortoleto, he's been a little bit, I suppose, on the weaker side in that sense. Speaking of Antonelli crashing into a Ferrari, we have to talk about Ferrari this weekend. Double DNF, very poor weekend. Their worst weekend so far this year. Both with just, Hamilton more because of an error that he made, which is very rare. The last time I saw an error like this was maybe USA 24, but still, he was struggling. Ferrari looked quite strong in terms of both drivers being up there, P6 and P7, that they both qualified. They had some really decent race pace. They were looking maybe for Leclerc after an incredible overtake, I must say, on George Russell, for a P4, Lewis maybe a P5. which would have been a great result for both of them after a very troublesome season. But regardless, they are pointless, both DNF'd with a crash from Lewis, an error, and Leclerc being absolutely taken out by Antonelli, both at the same corner. Lewis caught out by the rain, and Charles caught out by a charging Mercedes into the side of him, which was a very rookie mistake. Going into their home Grand Prix this weekend in Monza is going to be interesting after a horrible performance. But Ferrari do look strong. I'm not just saying that even after a DNF, but Ferrari do have the race pace for sure, and they've kind of managed to knuckle down on their qualifying. So going into Monza, where they won last year, should be a very interesting race to go and watch in that sense. I guess that's it. Well, let's look at predictions now, because I don't think I did that well in predictions. Okay, qualifying put Norris to be on pole. Nope. Piastri to be second. No, he took pole. Leclerc to be third. He got sixth. Russell to be fourth. I think George Russell did finish fourth. Let me just double check that. Lewis to be fifth. That did not happen, but I did think George Russell took fourth. Oh no, Isaac Hadjar took P4, so that is not right. Now in a race, I put Piastri to be P1. Norris to be P1, no. Piastri to be P2, no. Russell to be P3, no. Leclerc to be P4, and Hamilton to be P5. They all DNF'd. In the middle of the race, Piastri to be first, yes. Norris to be second, yes. Third to be Russell, no, that was Verstappen. Fourth to be Verstappen, no, that was Hadjar. And fifth to be Albon, no, that was... Who was fifth? Leclerc or Russell, but regardless, it's none of them. Biggest surprise, Mercedes. No, not really. They weren't the biggest good surprise. One crashed into another, and the other one had damage for most of the race. Biggest flop, Red Bull. I'm not going to say that, actually, because both drivers scored points. The first time that's happened since, I think, Imola. So, congrats to Red Bull. And Aston Martin scored 0 points. No, Stroll scored. Both drivers scored points. So that means that I only got 2 out of the possible 21 from... oh, wait. Okay, on to the drivers of the week. Mine definitely has to be Behrman. Definitely up there. Started in the pit lane and managed to work his way up to P6. Very unheard of. Gave him 9 out of 10. His best ever career performance in a car where his teammate didn't score points. A top drive from the British driver and really went unheard. Lance Stroll also crashed out in practice. Couldn't start quali, so started at the back of the grid. Still managed to make his way to the points. Unheard of again. Very, very solid performance from him. And of course, Isaac Hadjar, the main man of the weekend. Qualified P4, very dominant. Got a podium. Held his way throughout the whole race. Looked on the pace of Max. He could have probably overtaken Max if maybe the power dynamics were in his favour. So very good drive. Flops of the week now. Antonelli has to be my first one. Poor in qualifying, couldn't get out of Q2. Race, he looked fairly strong, but a careless error going into the back of Leclerc, going into the side of Leclerc in that turn 3. He tried the, I suppose, downward line of that slingshot corner, but I think he just misjudged how cold his tyres were, understeered into the side of him, and yeah, it was very poor. And yeah, then the 5-second penalty on top of that really didn't help his case at all. Ferrari, of course, double DNF. Both drivers looking fairly strong until they both, one crashed out and the other one got crashed into. With 0 points, it does put their fight against Mercedes for P2 at dismay. And of course, Lando Norris looked fairly strong. DNF wasn't his fault, but has taken a chunk out of his championship, I suppose, campaign to Oscar Piastri in a really, I suppose, bizarre, not a very rare reliability problem. In the championship, of course, Piastri extends his lead to 34 points to Lando Norris as Verstappen drops back. Technically he gains 70 points to Lando Norris. Isaac Hadjar also moves his way up to P10, I believe, as well. And in the Constructors' Championship, which I will just check right now. In Constructors' Championship, Ferrari are only 12 points ahead of Mercedes, as Red Bull do catch up they're around 30 points off Mercedes. Aston Martin are only 2 points ahead of Racing Bulls for P6, as Haas extend their gap to Alpine by 44. I would say that is a great place to end off our discussion on the 2025 Dutch Grand Prix. Make sure to like and subscribe, and have a simply lovely day. Goodbye.